everybody, welcome back. Everybody, hello, welcome back to Cm42 Television, which is what TV stands for. TV stands for television, that's right, you heard it here first. 42 is my favourite number, and CM stands for Chick Magnet. Big revelation there. This is, ladies and gents, the third annual top 10/15/ whatever it was last year movies that I watched for the very first time in the previous year. And this is the 2018 edition, obviously, because this right now is early January and you could be watching this next January and you could be thinking, you could be getting confused. Anyway, this is the top 15 films that I, CM42TV, that's not me. The channel is called, never mind. The top 15 films that I watched, me personally, that I watched on my telly in 2018 for the very first time. Now, this is quite a very varied list for me. Usually that's the case anyway, but this year especially, there's some Christmas films, there's some blockbusters, there's some recent films, there's some really old films, and there's some sort of independent, smaller films, which I think is great. It shows that the year was quite diverse for me in terms of watching a lot of different films, which is the way forward. And there's another, your New Year's resolution. Every year I start off January by saying, right, a New Year's resolution for me is to make sure to watch some new and some different films. And that's what I did in 2018 and what I plan to continue doing in 2019, because it's only a few days in and I've watched the film every single day unintentionally so far. So that's exciting, for the year going forward. But let's get started here. Number 15 on my top 15 movies that I watched for the first time ever in 2018 is The Cabinet of Dr Caligari from 1920. Can you believe the difference of, I don't know, the difference of me or difference of the films that you'll probably see over the next few years, like probably last year. My number 15 is Spider-Man. My number 15 this year is a film from 1920, which is a film that absolutely inspired so many other films going forward, is The Cabinet of Dr Caligari. I can't tell you that I know much about this film because I really don't. We just watched it in film class that I was talking about before. So it was never one that I would ever, go out of my way to watch. I know this is in the Masters of Cinema collection for Blu-rays. I don't know about the Criterion, but I really love this film because it was so different to anything I'd ever seen ever before. And you can see so many little things in this film that has inspired films after that has been in that sort of genre, that sort of whodunit genre, the sort of sci-fi elements, a very early sci-fi film. 1920 this film came out in. Of course it's in black and white and it's a silent film, but we had just watched another film that I'm sure I'll get to in a minute that was kind of black and white, which I don't know, I said I'm sure I'll get to. I definitely will get to because I know I'm looking at the list in front of me, but and the week before we watched that other film, so then coming in, to a new week of film class, I'm sitting there thinking, I wonder what, this film's going to be, because it was never revealed to us, I should make that clear. It was always a secret, what films we were going to watch in film class, and then my lecturer, director, would reveal to everybody, and this week we were watching The Cabinet of Dr Caligari, and everyone was going, what? So not many people liked it, some people did, and I loved it. And it's just, I guess that makes me a film buff now, that I like a film from the 20s. Number 14 is a very similar film to Dr Caligari, Battle of the Sexes from 2017. Definitely my favourite tennis movie I've ever seen. Probably the only tennis film I've ever seen, but definitely my favourite. Steve Carell and Emma Stone, two of my favourite actors in general, just full stop. Especially Steve Carell being arguably my top 5 favourite actors of all time. Maybe not of all time. Yeah, of all time. Why not? And Emma Stone, who I'm a big fan of as well. I watched this one in anticipation to make my top 10 films of 2017 list. As you can probably tell, I like making lists and stuff. I wanted to see if this film would rank somewhere on my 17 best films list. And unfortunately it didn't. It was an honourable mention. However, I loved it so much it had to be on this particular countdown because it was great. It's a film that I didn't know the story. That was the biggest one as well. When you watch these films that are like based on a true story, even though every single film says that these days, but when it actually is based on an actual event that happened and is like recorded for history and always referred to, and you don't know the story, it's like I, Tonya from 2018. I, Tonya is a legendary story and I didn't know anything about it, so I researched it before I saw the film, which may have hindered my enjoyment of the film. The fact this one, I didn't know anything about. I didn't research it, I had never heard of it. I didn't know it was based on a true story until I started watching the film. So that changed it all, that kind of made it kind of more special. So number 14, Battle of the Sexes. Great film. 13 is a classic that is talked about all the time and considered an incredible film. It's called Full Metal Jacket from 1987, considered like the greatest war film of all time. I don't know if I agree with that. I think Hacksaw Ridge is a great shout for greatest war films ever, and Schindler's List, of course, is really good, but Schindler's List just missed out on this particular list. Schindler's List didn't make it onto Chris's list. Full Metal Jacket. This is just it's a Stanley Kubrick film, and it's like a Stanley Kubrick take on war. And you can just imagine that it's just fucking nuts, you know, and just mental. So it was exactly that. You had the weird characters, you had the overly violent moments, you had the weird way of telling the story, and it was pure, like, it pure affected you when you watch it. You watch it and you go, whoa, when you take notice. And this film was like in two halves. Like the first half and the second half is completely different, and anybody who's obviously seen the film and loves the film knows that, but I had never seen it before, obviously, so it was a nice wee surprise. Great performances, great film making, obviously, and yeah, just a great war film, a great film in general. My number 13, Full Metal Jacket. That's like regarded one of the greatest films ever, and I think it's on the bucket list poster, so we may get to that again somewhere soon down the line. So there we go. Number 12 is a film that I had been wanting to watch since 2013 when it was released, so a good few years anyway, and I'd always wanted to watch it around Christmas time. Although it's not particularly a Christmas film, or it's not specifically a Christmas film, to me, I don't know, there was something about watching this film in summer that I didn't like. So I waited every year since 2013. You know, I'll watch it at Christmas, I'll watch it at Christmas, I'll watch it in December. And I never did until 2018. So I watched this film a matter of weeks ago, and I still love it, and it's Frozen, the animated, now almost classic Disney film. It's just reaching legendary status. And I love all the Disney films and stuff, but when you hear the songs before you see a film, I think that hinders the film, because then you get sick of the songs before you've even seen the film. So Let It Go and Do You Want to Build a Snowman and all these other things become like household songs, and they're on the radio, and they're in musicals, and they're in class when you study acting, and they're all these things, you know, and I get put off by it. I was like, oh, Let It Go, you know what I mean, is what you hear all the time. I hadn't even seen the film, but I know all the words to the fucking song. But then this year I pulled the trigger, I bit the bullet, and I watched the film, and I fell in love with the film. I fell in love with the soundtrack, even though I'd heard it a million times. It was now different because it was along with the story, and it was along with the characters and stuff. Great film, really funny, really charming, and it's just like typical Disney. They do the job every single time, and I'm so glad I watched it at Christmas time, because it does feel very wintry. Of course it does. There's snow everywhere, everything's frozen. Freezing, man. Number 11 is another Christmas film, and it's just a daft film. It's just so silly, and it's obviously not a better film than the 4 films I just talked about, but this one, in terms of me not expecting anything and getting so much more out of it than I thought, and just found hilarious and really made me feel Christmassy, that I just watched a couple of weeks ago again, and that's Daddy's Home 2. Sequel to Daddy's Home from 2017 with Will Ferrell and John Lithgow and Mark Wahlberg, and John Cena's in this film, and Mel Gibson's in the film. Oh, it's so good. I didn't expect anything. I just thought it was going to be a silly sequel to Daddy's Home, which I like. You know, it's not the greatest, but it's fine, it's funny. And then I knew that Daddy's Home 2 was a Christmas film. It was the Daddy's Home sequel set at Christmas. And I thought, I'm trying to watch these new Christmas films, you know. I put it on, and I loved every single minute of it. It was hilarious. It was funny. It was just the right amount of funny to not be taken away from the fact that it's meant to be really nice and festive, you know. So, perfect Christmas film. Can't recommend it if you've never seen it to check it out next Christmas. Please do, and let me know what you think, because Daddy's Home 2 was a great surprise for me, and now one of a sort of underrated Christmas films for me, I think. So yeah, great film. Number 10, now we're getting into the top 10 here. Another very early film from 1926, and it is my first ever Buster Keaton film. Can you believe that? Look at me. Look at me. Going on learning about great filmmakers and like legendary actors and stuff. The General from 1926. You hear about this film all the time on YouTube, and just from like film classes, or when you study film in general, it's always like the greatest silent films ever made, or the greatest, you know, train-based films ever made, or the greatest Buster Keaton films. The General, and this is the one I wanted to start with. I don't know what it was. There was a period in the year where I was going through a lot of classic films, and when I think of classic films, I think of like the 60s, the 70s. This is way back in the 20s, so it's like super duper classic. So I was watching things like The Naked City and Network and old Hitchcock films, which we'll get to in a second, and that sort of thing. And The General kind of falls into that classic film genre, and obviously silent films I'm not really familiar with enough anyway. I'd like to get to know a lot more classic films and silent films and noir films going into the new year. So that's another another aspect of that New Year's resolution for me, is to kind of broaden my horizons in films that I watch. In terms of like foreign films and stuff, I don't really watch many foreign films, which is a nice segue actually to number 9, which is Inglorious Basterds from 2007. Incredibly done foreign film. A lot of it's in English, but a lot of it's also in French and German. I talked about this in my Blu-ray collection video. I tried to watch this film illegally one time, right? I don't know why. I think I was planning on doing some sort of like top 10 Tarantino films video or podcast or something, which never happened, but I tried to anyway. So I was going back and watching a bunch of his films. I watched Kill Bill and I watched The Hateful Eight, and I didn't watch Django, which I really should get to because I've not seen it in a couple of years, so that could be a wee review we do, unless it's on the bucket list poster. Good chance it will be. So where was I going with that? Yeah, so I wanted to watch Inglorious Basterds because I'd never seen it before, to talk about on the podcast or in the video or whatever. So I watched it on some mad stream thing, and there was no subtitles whatsoever, like at all, even during like the foreign bits. And I'm thinking, it's Tarantino. He's a kind of weird filmmaker. He likes these weird sort of styles and weird sort of things and quirks in his films. Maybe he just thought, let's not put subtitles up and let's just try and get the audience who don't speak these other languages to kind of just assume they know what's going on and try and follow the story from the movements and the expressions and the acting and stuff, which I kind of like that idea. So I ended up watching like a good hour of the film with no subtitles and thinking this is like a challenge to me, to kind of figure out what's going on. But after an hour, I literally was clueless. I was so lost. Didn't have a clue what was going on, not a Scooby. So I turned it off and I googled, is Inglorious Basterds supposed to have subtitles? And the answer was most definitely yes. So I bought it on Blu-ray like I should have done in the first place. Never watch things illegally, especially if you're trying to get into the fucking film industry. And I got it on Blu-ray, I watched it, and I fell in love with the film. The fact there's all these subtitles for different languages, and then the English parts are like just as good, like Christoph Waltz's scene, the first half an hour of this film is just unbelievable. Amazing. One of my favourite scenes I've ever seen in film. This, this opening scene between, Christoph Waltz and when he's like, are you hiding Jews here, sort of thing. So I'll not spoil it, but it's definitely something you should check out. And the whole film, Brad Pitt and stuff is hilarious, man. I just remember that he's trying to pretend he's foreign or whatever, and he's got that really southern American accent or whatever. He's like, "Buongiorno," hilarious. Great film, number 9. Probably should have ranked higher, but I did this list in one take, and I thought let's keep it like that. Number 8 for me from 1987 is The Princess Bride with Andre the Giant. My name is Inigo. What's his name? Inigo Montoya. You kill my father, prepare to die. That's like the infamous quote. And this film is so much fun. I watched it and I was so tired and I fell asleep. And I woke up and I said, but that film couldn't have been very good. It couldn't have been very exciting. It put me to fucking sleep. So of course it was still there, and I wanted to watch it. I missed most of it, so I put it back on. And I was like, how can anyone fall asleep during this film? It is absolutely brilliant. It's hilarious. It's so much fun to watch. It's like a day off watching this film. Any film should be that. But sometimes, it is a chore watching films. It can be that. But this one, it was like totally off the wall, totally bonkers. It's refreshing in some ways. We don't expect to like it because it's totally different to what you'd expect and what you're used to, so. And the fact Andre's in it as well. Anytime a wrestler has some sort of, or wrestling in general, has some sort of link to a film, I'm going to like it no matter what it is. So my number 8 is The Princess Bride. Number 7, I was talking about my classic and old school Hitchcock films I was watching. My number 7 is Saboteur from 1942. I have changed, man. I have changed. That's already on this list. We've got 2 films from the 20s and one from the 40s. 1942, Saboteur. I don't know if this is like Hitchcock's first ever film, right? But it was the first film in the Masterpiece Collection. Now, I got this Masterpiece Collection Blu-ray set for my birthday, which was in August. So just after I got that, I wanted to start watching the films. I put the first one in, and I just loved this film because I'd never heard of it. I just love that. That's one of my favourite things to do. When you've never heard of a film, you don't know what to expect, you don't know who the actors are, you don't even know the story or what happens. And you just love the film, you fall in love with it, and it's what a great film this is, and it's so old school with the old school effects and stuff. And there's like a wee documentary like on that disc as a sort of bonus feature, the making of Saboteur or something. And it was so highly regarded at the time. It totally gets forgotten about because Hitchcock's made so many classics. So it's definitely one that's hidden, and I'd recommend people trying to sort of fetch out and try and find. So Saboteur is my number 7. Number 6, a bit more modern, so modern in fact, 2017. And I actually watched this film in the first week of 2018 in the cinema because wasn't in the cinemas yet. But obviously the film came out in 17, so it couldn't make my list for this year. And it is The Greatest Showman. Yes, The Greatest Showman from 2017 is my number 6, with Hugh Jackman, Zac Efron, Michelle Williams, and Zendaya. Me and my fam in general just totally fell in love with this film. I think because we were in New York in December in 2017, and I guess I would have seen this film anyway, but we didn't get a chance to see it because we were in New York and we came back and it was Christmas time and we just missed it. But my sister had seen it with her friends before, so she was talking about it when we were in New York. And there was advertisements everywhere about it in New York City and stuff, so it kind of made me want to see it. And then we watched this right at the start of the new year in 2018 in the cinema. So getting to experience like a musical like this where the soundtrack is just amazing in the cinema totally blows this film out of the water. It's ridiculous as well that this is one of those musicals where the soundtrack is so much better than the film. Because the film's not amazing by any stretch, it's not even that. It's not even that great. It's good. It's really good. But like in terms of how well it's made and stuff, it's like a lot of it's very messy and a lot of it's very dry. But the soundtrack just lifts it so much and changes the film and just makes the film so good, and just I love the film so much because of the soundtrack. I'm sitting there during the film judging it, and then one of the greatest songs came on. I don't know if it was The Greatest Show or The Other Side or Never Enough or one of these classics came on, but I was just saying to myself, like, wake up, stop being a feckin' dafty, and realise the greatness of what you're watching here. You're getting to experience this in the cinema, like on the big screen with the great speakers and stuff. Oh, just amazing, so good. I got the Blu-ray on the first day it came out and stuff, and I listened to the soundtrack all the time, weekly at this point. And then they did the Reimagined series, the Reimagined album, where like different artists did their take on the songs. You got people like James Arthur on there, and you got Ty Dolla $ign and a country band, and it's like everybody. Pink did one of the songs. Panic at the Disco doing The Greatest Show, which is almost better, than the actual original. Ridiculous, and the film is just so special. So The Greatest Showman is my number 6. God, talked it up a lot there. It should have been higher up. Top 5 now. I'll try and speed this up. Number 5 is a classic from 1997, the year I was born. Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon and Robin Williams. This is the first time I'd ever seen this film, and it's been on my list for a good maybe 5 years or something on my Netflix, what to watch next list. And just because I've always loved sort of Robin Williams and even Matt Damon, I think he's really good as well. And I think when I was studying acting, it was one of those ones where you should watch when you're studying acting. It's a film you watch when you want to be an actor. And I'm watching this film thinking, why did I not watch this film 5 years earlier? It's so good. It's sweet and it's funny, and there's moments in it. And when you know how something's going, behind the scenes stories and stuff like that, it just makes this, the film even more special, because you kind of feel like you know it and you feel like you know them. Like the stories of like Robin Williams just coming out with these things, and like Matt Damon just reacting so organically and laughing at how funny Robin Williams was and is in this film, just gives the film so much more charm. And it's well written, it's well improvised, it's well made, and like it's so sweet, and it's such a great film. Great relationship between Robin Williams and Matt Damon, who I think Matt Damon's a really underrated actor. I think he's brilliant. Obviously he's a big name, but it doesn't get regarded as well as DiCaprio and all these people. So yeah, Good Will Hunting is my number 5. Number 4, I was talking about this earlier, when we were in film class back in, I'm going to say March or April or something like that. And my lecturer came out and said, last week we watched, or next week we're watching Caligari, and no one knows what that is. This week we're watching Pleasantville. And everyone's like, what the hell is Pleasantville? I've never heard of these films before. Can we please watch some films that we at least know of? And I'll tell you something, we knew all about Pleasantville when we left that classroom, because Pleasantville is more than pleasant, it is feckin' brilliant. Feckin' Brilliantville it should be called. Pleasantville from 1998 is my number 4. So funny with this cast as well. It's such a huge, big name cast. You got Tobey Maguire and you got Reese Witherspoon's in this film, and loads of other names I can't really remember. But this film, it's just another one of those, I'm repeating myself, but you don't know anything about it. You go in blind and it just captures you, and it's such a good idea. And I like films where the film's already good, but then something happens. One little moment in the film, a wee change of a character or a wee revelation that changes the story, and the whole film switches and changes and goes in another direction, and it just makes it gives it more layers, and it just gives you goosebumps, and you just go, oh my god, that is brilliant. And Pleasantville has loads of them. I felt the same about a film from this year called Searching, which was really high up in my top 10 list for 2018. And it was like one of those films you don't know anything about and you go in completely blind, and so many moments change the film and give it so many different layers and different sort of directions that it takes you. Pleasantville's like that. It's like a normal family that are watching the same programme every day on TV, and the programme is in black and white. And they get sucked into the television and they end up living in this world of Pleasantville in black and white. And they take some of like the normal life, real life, like colour and stuff like that into the black and white TV show. And it changes everybody in the show's sort of life. And it's brilliant, brilliant film, great idea. I've got it actually recorded on the Sky Planner because it was on like Channel 4 the other day. So I'll be checking that one out again very soon. So Pleasantville is my number 4. Check it out if you've never heard it before, because no one knows what that film is, which is a crime. I didn't know until this year. So Pleasantville. Top 3. My number 3, I already reviewed on the 100 Movies Bucket List series, which is now available on Cm42TV. I think this was my number 7 or something, or my review number 7. That is In Bruges, a film from 2007, starring Colin Firth. Yeah, Colin Firth and Brendan Gleeson, I think his name is, and Ralph Fiennes, and some other great actors. It's just it's brilliant. It's so good, these films. They're just so, and when you love films so much, it's kind of hard to put into words. I think I've done really well here, trying to make every film sound different, because I just love all the films equally. But In Bruges is such a great example of two actors that are they just have so much chemistry between them, and you can tell that they really get on. Maybe they don't. I don't know the story between these two, but I'm assuming they're quite good pals, the two actors. And then they create this relationship on screen where one person's really into a lot of architecture and history and that sort of thing, and the other one's just there for a laugh and to have a drink and to meet girls. And basically they're two really bad hitmen that are on the run, and they end up in a really boring city called Bruges, and they're just trying to find stuff to do, and something happens and they meet these people, and it just becomes a disaster, and it's just one thing leads to another, and the film just builds, and it turns out it starts a wee nice sort of Richard Linklater-esque film into a Martin McDonagh bizarre tale, just like A Behanding in Spokane, just like Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. These off-the-wall bizarre films, it just becomes one of them. It escalates because of this relationship and because of the dafties that these guys are. And it becomes brilliant. In Bruges, again, another one I'd never heard of, didn't even know how to say the name, didn't even know how to pronounce the name of the film. And then you watch it and you just go, where has this been? Number 3, In Bruges, brilliant. And again, this list is so subjective. It could be any order, you know, they're all great. Especially this top 5, you know. 2, could easily be my number 1, as I just said, but it felt as if number 1 is a better film. But number 2 is Crazy Stupid Love from 2006. Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, and everybody else in that film. I watched this film on the way, or maybe on the way home. I think it was on the way home from my holiday to Orlando back in the summer. I went to Florida for 2 whole weeks, and on the way there I watched a film called Last Flying Flag, and it was also got Steve Carell in it. Steve Carell and Bryan Cranston's in it, and it said comedy. So I thought I'll watch that on the way to Florida to get myself in a good mood for Disney World. And it was so sad and so tragic, and I was like, why did I watch that? So on the way home I was looking forward to watching a film that was more funny and more uplifting. And it's one of those films, I don't know what to compare it to, but when you hear it you go, oh really? Love Actually, there's one. You go to watch Love Actually and you go, I'm not really fussed to watching Love Actually, but then you watch it and you realise that it's absolutely brilliant. This is another example of that, but this film is even better than Love Actually, because this film is fucking unbelievable. I couldn't believe how much I loved this film. I couldn't believe it. So we watched it on the plane, and my sister was sitting next to me, or 2 seats away from me on the plane, and she knows this film, you know, inside out or whatever. So I'm watching the film on the plane, like on the back of the seat in front of me, with the headphones in and stuff, and she's watching me to see my reaction to the stuff that's going on in this film, because again, you hear it, you think maybe it's like a rom-com, a chick flick sort of thing, it puts you off it, just that stigma, and then you watch it, and again, you see the layers, and you see the great performances. Steve Carell in this film is brilliant, as I said earlier. Steve Carell is one of the greatest actors to ever live. And then you got the relationship between Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone, which would later flourish into La La Land, another one of my favourite movies ever. This is just a brilliant film, and the fact that I didn't know it, and there's so many more big name actors that I can't remember that also are great, and then like that last half of the film, the second half of the film, is just unbelievable. Brilliant, so good, rightful winner of this list. But my number 1, is a better film, and that is my number one favourite film that I watched for the first time in 2018 was The Truman Show from 1998, Jim Carrey, made by Peter Weir, who's an Australian film director. I know that because I just edited some clips of one of the Good Bit episodes. Yeah, I talked about it on the 100 Movies Bucket List series as well. I think it was episode 4, I think maybe. And I watched this in January of 2018 and it instantly became one of my favourite films of all time. That's how strongly I felt about it. And it is just brilliant. There's no other words to it. And that's the thing, I've talked these films up, these other 14 films up, and I can honestly say that I loved all of them so much, but number one is number one for a reason. That's how much I love The Truman Show. I've already watched it again since this, you know, I watched this twice in 2018, which I never do. And it's just brilliant. It's well made, it's well acted, it's funny, it's such a great idea, and it's, I heard someone say this recently, it may even Luke from Razor Wire Reviews, but he was talking about The Truman Show. It was because he got it in one of his HMV updates. He was saying this is like one of the first films where Jim Carrey really took on that sort of like, I am becoming this character, I am, you know, I am Truman Burbank is his name. And it's not dangerous, but it shows the method acting that Jim Carrey goes through, and he's just becoming one of the most legendary actors of all time now. And although there are a lot of like hints of like classic sort of silly Jim Carrey in this, it's really sweet and it's really dark and it's really, you fall in love with him, you fall in love with Truman, and you want him to do well. But then the fact that it explains, I've already talked about this loads, but it explains, you know, the situation during the film. I love, you don't have to wait to do it yourself after. It tells you what we're trying to do here in the middle of the film. So we've gone in blind the first half, then it explains it, and then we get to see the fallout after. It's brilliant. It's one of the greatest films ever. It's one of my favourite films of all time, and it's my number one on this particular list from 1998. The Truman Show. So thank you very much, everybody. The Truman Show is my number one for best films I watched for the first time in 2018. Let me know if anybody's watched any great films that they didn't know existed or whatever this year, or even already in the start of 2019. So yeah, have a good one wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing with your day, and watch some great films that you've never heard of before. Watch some films that you hear about all the time, or watch some films that you can't even pronounce the name of, because that can happen to me. And fall in love with them, because that's the best when you have a film and you don't know anything about it and it just becomes one of the best you've ever seen. Until next time, folks, thank you so much, and sorry for taking up so much of your time. Check out my podcast if you want to talk some more on iTunes and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The Good Bit podcast is there for you all. Until next time, thanks very much for watching and stay safe.